Hello and welcome to Rulebreaker. Today we're going to take a look at how to play as the self-destructive cult known as the Yin Brotherhood in Twilight Imperium 4th edition. These guys play a little differently to a lot of the other races in that they sacrifice their own units to do damage to their opponents. That makes them a rather unpredictable and complex enemy to fight against, and a rather expensive and complicated race to play as in the game. Let's take a look at how they start off. Alright, so they have one starting technology, which is the Sarween tools. That's the yellow technology here, which reads, when one or more of your units use production, reduce the combined cost of the produced units by 1. This is a really nice technology, especially early on in the game. Having a one cost reduction to all of your production is really nice to have. The fact that you've only got the one technology means that you're not going to be racing through technology very quickly, but at least this one is going to be able to help you pay for the units that you're likely going to be wanting to sacrifice in combat. Speaking of units, let's see what you start off with. You've got 2 carriers. This is great. Having 2 carriers is really nice because it means you can split off in 2 directions at the very start of the game. You've got one destroyer, which is a fast little ship. You've got 4 fighters, which are usually used to take up hits from enemy fire. You've got 4 infantry, which is a nice number to have, especially when you've got the 2 carriers, meaning you can split and conquer as many planets as possible nearby. And you've got a space dock, which you'll need to build more units with. Alright, this is the Yin Brotherhood starting system of Darien. It is a 4 and 4 planet, which is really good actually. 4 resources being yellow, influence being blue. So you're going to have your space dock down here on Darien, which is going to mean that 2 plus 4 for the production, meaning that you can produce 6 units here from round 1, which is really good. Your starting units, when you see them out on the board, they're actually going to look a little bit spare. You don't have a lot of firepower. You do have the 2 carriers, which you're probably going to want to send out conquering nearby planets as soon as possible, but you don't have a lot of firepower. You're going to have to probably concentrate on getting some stronger ships pretty early. At least you've got 4 resources on this card to do it if you really want to. Alright, let's take a look at the front of the Yin's race sheet. You've got all your troop types here on the front. The Yin use the basic loadout of troops. They don't have any special unique units. We're more interested in their race abilities over here, so let's see what they are. The first one is Indoctrination. It reads, at the start of a ground combat you may spend 2 influence to replace one of your opponent's participating infantry with 1 infantry from your reinforcements. So let's just take a look at that at the board. Okay, so when a ground combat starts, so after a PDS has had a chance to fire, if one exists or whatever, you're into the ground combat phase. In this example, the opponent is the yellow player and the Yin is the purple player. In order to use Indoctrination, it has to happen at the very start of the ground combat round, and the Yin player can spend influence, which is this blue number on these cards. They have to spend 2 in order to activate this. So you could use Darien if you want, or you can use a different planet, one that you've conquered that's a little bit more cost effective, like this one. And the way it works is you take away one of your opponent's ground forces from the planet and immediately take another one of yours from your supply, straight out of your, not from ones you've got built elsewhere on the board, and put it in. As you can see here, what was a 3-on-3 fight is now a 4-on-2 fight. Bear in mind you can only do this at the very start of ground combat. You can't do it every round, just the first time. The Yin's other racial ability is called Devotion, which reads, after each space battle round you may destroy one of your cruisers or destroyers to produce 1 hit and assign it to one of your opponent's ships. Wow, that's pretty it's pretty self-destructive and pretty straightforward. You're going to have destroyers and cruisers in order to do it. So the destroyer is this little guy here, the cruiser is this one here. You do start with a destroyer, you don't have any cruisers at the beginning of the game, but they're quite cheap units to build, costing 2 or costing 1. And yeah, the way that this would work is you simply take the one that you want to sacrifice out of there and it would produce a hit on one of your opponent's ships. The Yin player also gets to choose where the damage goes when they sacrifice one of these units, making it pretty strong. But bear in mind that the cost for this is losing the ship and the resources that you use to pay for it. Really, when you think about it, it's pretty expensive. But having the choice of where it goes makes it a little bit better. And it can turn the tide of battle, especially if you're in a fight where you've got more ships. You shouldn't really hesitate to do it. It could make a big difference in the long run. The Yin only have access to 2 commodities during the trade phase if they fill up their commodities with their strategy token, making them not a really great trade partner for other people. Trying to get trade goods for these 2 is going to be tough. You're probably going to have to really work on your trade as the Yin. It's not a very strong thing for them. Yeah. Their other really unique thing on this sheet here is their flagship, the Van Hague. Let's take a closer look at that. Alright, the Van Hague, the big flagship unit like this here, it has sustained damage just like every other flagship, which means you can turn it on its side when it gets its first hit and it continues to fight for another day. A second hit will take it out. Its stats are, it costs 8, which is pretty standard. It has a really poor combat roll with 2 dice that need 9s to hit, making it one of the weakest combat orientated flagships. It only has a move of 1 and a capacity of 3, so it also isn't going to be some kind of super carrier carrying loads of stuff around for you. It's also not going to be moving very fast. However, it does have a really cool special ability, which is when this ship is destroyed, destroy all ships in this system. So there you have it. It's like a glass cannon. Send it out on its own in a fight where your opponent has probably a big fleet. Let it get destroyed and destroy everything in the system. I think most of the time you're going to find that it ends up being it's kind of a ship that persuades people to retreat more so than anything else. Something to bear in mind that it does say specifically ships, not units, so you will not destroy infantry or space docks or PDS units with this here. So you're going to have to think about that when heading into the systems. The Yin have 2 racial techs like everybody else in the game. Theirs are as follows: the Yin Spinner, which is a green technology that requires 2 previous greens to be built, and the Impulse Core, which is a yellow tech that requires 2 yellows in order to build. The Yin Spinner is pretty straightforward. It reads, after 1 or more of your units use production, place 1 infantry from your reinforcements on a planet you control in that system. So any system where you've got a space dock down, you can place free infantry into that system after you do production. So you'll have to produce something, but it does go in for free. It also doesn't count towards the production limit on the space dock because it's not part of the production itself. So you've got this extra guy here that just goes in for free. That could be useful, but really if it's going to be on a system that you've already got control of and have a production thing on it, it's going to be a bit of a slow burn to grow that infantry army. The other ability is the Impulse Core, which reads, at the start of a space combat, you may destroy one of your cruisers or destroyers in the active system to produce 1 hit against your opponent's ships. That hit must be assigned by your opponent to one of his non-fighter ships if able. So this is naturally quite similar to the Devotion ability that we just spoke about, which uses the destroyers and the cruisers. However, this is a little different in that it has to happen at the very start of a space combat. It doesn't happen every round, and your opponent also gets to choose where the hit goes. However, they can't choose a fighter, so they can't choose their little guys who they would normally want to take the hits. Yeah, we've already covered what it does in the Devotion thing, so yeah, you're going to be paying the same cost that you paid for that and doubling up. So if you're planning on going heavy Impulse Core and Devotion, you're going to be needing to build a lot of these 2 ship types throughout the game. The Yin have their own promissory note as well, just like every other race, which is one of these here. Theirs is Greyfire Mutagen, and when you give this to somebody, they can use it against you, and it reads, after a system is activated, the Yin player cannot use faction abilities or faction technology during this tactical action. Then return this card to the Yin player. Essentially, that's the anti-Devotion, anti-Impulse Core card. You can probably safely give this away to an ally as long as you know you're not going to need to attack them, but it could be pretty devastating if you end up having to fight this person later, or if they stab you in the back and you need to get your revenge on them. Not being able to use these two is kind of the thing that the Yin is good for, and nullifying that is making you very weak. So don't give this out lightly, but you know, it could be something that is pretty useful in the right circumstances. And that's really it for the Yin. They're pretty straightforward. They do like their cruisers and destroyers, flying them in big fleets, and then sacrificing their own ships to do as much damage as possible. I do like the Flagship, the Van Hague. I think that's one of the more interesting articles belonging to the Yin. Being able to destroy all ships in the system. Just bear in mind that it would also destroy your own ships if it's destroyed, so send it out on its own and do as much damage as possible. As for the Yin, my experience with them in gameplay, I think they're kind of one-dimensional. This destroy your own ships to do damage thing is very expensive. It can be quite costly. The ground combat indoctrination ability is probably their most useful one, making your ability to invade other planets really easy. You're also likely to have a lot of enemies at the table, mainly because of the fact that you're going to be either choosing to do damage to really cool ships, or with the indoctrination doing as much damage to infantry as possible. Yeah, so the Yin, very difficult to play as, don't have a lot of trade, expensive to kill your own units. You even want to explode your own expensive flagship, so you've got a rough game ahead of you regarding resource management. You're going to have to conquer a lot of planets early. You do have Sarween tools at the start of the game, which is a nice little bonus, gets you going, gets you paying for things, which essentially could be a free destroyer really when you think about it. But yeah, you're going to have to really ramp up the fleet production very early if you're going to have any chance of winning, and that's the main thing with these guys really. So that's the Yin. I hope you have a good time playing as those guys. Don't make too many enemies at the table because you want to play the game again. And if you've enjoyed this video, please let other people know. Keep watching the series, and if you've any questions, throw them down in the comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Alright, thanks very much.